Hi, I'm Michael Rhodes, bass player with Joe Bonamassa. You're watching and listening to ForBassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com. We're coming to you today from Joe Bonamassa's tour bus. Is it Bonamassa or Bonamassa?
It's Bonamassa.
Bonamassa. I was right the first time. Shouldn't question
As
myself.
As is so often the case. First thought, best thought.
And we are in the parking lot of the spectacular, fabulous Fox Theater downtown Detroit with Joe Bonamassa Band bassist Michael Rhodes. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing fine.
I just saw a Miles Davis documentary. I don't know why you just reminded me of that.
Get that one out of your mouth, John. All right. It's an old anecdote.
It's great. You know, we've kind of bumped into each other, NAMM, Summer NAMM, wherever it is. I see how this is going to go. But I'm really glad we're able to sit down and you managed to squeeze a little time for us to do this interview. So let's talk about you. You've got an interesting story. You've played with so many people, mostly country people, but some not so country people too, Steve Winwood, Elton John. Well,
everybody comes from a country.
That's true.
So there's that. No, I've been really lucky. I've been, to be at the right place at the right time, with a lot of these situations, man. It's been very fortunate. Yeah.
Well, if you can give us like the Reader's Digest version. I know you started in Louisiana, spent some time in Austin, went to Memphis, and then back to wherever you went, and then you started and your career got rolling. Tell me about your initial exposure to music and how you became a bass player.
Oh, man. Guitars and movies. No, I was fascinated by the soundtracks of those things, the field recordings and stuff like that. Even when I was a little bitty kid, with the drums, they drove me nuts, and the chanting and all that kind of stuff. So it was like, oh man. And then it was just osmosis. My mother, nobody in my family for generations probably were musical, but there was always music in the house. Records playing, radio, that kind of stuff, and in that time period, and also my neighbor. The two sons, the two neighborhood sons there, turned me on to Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis Presley back in the 50s. They got a little bit older than I was, so I got the bug early on, and then of course the surf music and that and all, just music in the air.
Okay.
Yeah.
What attracted you to the bass?
The rhythm, the bottom strings. Just that's what I always heard. Even when I got an acoustic guitar when I was about 11 years old or something like that, but I always played on the bottom strings. I just liked the sound of it, So it was always bass. Okay.
Did you start listening to music differently after you discovered the bass and picking out the bass and maybe even noticing or taking the initiative to find out who the bass players were on those recordings?
Well, yeah, I did. It did change the way I listened. As it would, because I'm trying to figure out how, to be a better bass player, and so I'm kind of honing in on all that. And yeah, I was interested in who was doing it, and it was harder back then to figure it out, So it was all, as soon as the self-contained groups started coming out, the Beatles and obviously, all that kind of stuff, that was easy, you knew who that was. But on the records, a lot of the records that I liked, pop music especially, and R&B, you didn't know.
I'm waiting for James Jamerson's name to come up here.
James Jamerson, obviously,
About what are we about a mile away from from where all that magic happened?
The snake pit, right?
Hitsville, USA.
Yeah, I know. So Jamerson, obviously, and then Tommy Cogbill. I always have to mention him because Cogbill was a Southern Jamerson to me. With his approach to it, and then David Hood, and those cats and Norb Putnam, and of course in the LA people, that once I figured that out, there's Carol Kay and Joe Osborne and that generation, Ray Pullman and all that. They were brilliant.
So how did the career get rolling? As I mentioned, you played with so many people. Oh, and I didn't mention that you were on the list of the 100 greatest bass players of all time by Bass Player magazine. What a distinction.
Oh, I know.
Well deserved.
Well, thanks. I didn't see that one coming, but I'll take it. Yeah. As far as a career, I played in a number of bands growing up. So a lot of cover bands. Playing in Louisiana circuit. chicken wire clubs, all that kind of stuff. So I had to learn how to play a lot of different kinds of music.
Excuse me, what's a chicken wire club?
It's to protect.
Tell this Detroit boy.
Oh, the chicken wire club is it has wire in the front of the stage to protect the band from bottles and things being thrown at
So
them.
this literally, right?
Yeah, it's literally. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so anyway, we were playing for our lives a lot of times, and so anyway, it was a very valuable experience to be able to be versed in just about every kind of music, except jazz. I mean, we weren't playing jazz or anything like that. Not for the peeps.
For yourselves, though?
Not then. I was playing rock and roll and R&B, and which I still do. I mean, I can act like a jazz player, but I can't play jazz.
What did my son tell me? A rock guy plays 3 chords for 50,000 people, and a jazz guy plays 50,000 chords for 3 people.
And then there's that aspect of it. I'd rather own than rent.
Okay.
But no, I'm just kidding. No, that is to be a serious jazz player is such a dedication. I didn't put the time in early enough. Anyway, the point is that so I knocked around, like you were talking about, Louisiana, Austin, Memphis, back to Austin, and I went to Nashville, met up with some friends there, met some people who knew some people, and I started doing demos, and then it just started to roll from there. It started, a whole group of us sort of rode it up.
This was around late 70s?
Late 70s, I'd say. I got to Nashville in 77, and it took maybe a year and a half or 2 to start working, which I was pretty fast,
How long would it take someone now? Everything else being equal.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's really because it's so circumstantial, about who you know and how you.
But that's not new. It's always
been that way. And the prevailing technology now, it may be easier because of the number of home studios and people. It doesn't have to be so organized, and that's so they can. You could get to it quicker. I don't know. I really don't know. Not to be vague about it, but but
it's a loaded question.
But it's really, a lot of people ask me or have asked me over the years, and it's you just have to find your tribe. You've got to find people that are kind of sort of at the same point in their career, and then the rising tide raises all the ships.
Yep. Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how's this tour going? You've been with Joe about 4 years or so?
It's about 4.5, something like that. Yeah. This tour is fine. It's much like and his logo, and it was an intellectual exercise for me until I got out here on the road. Always on the road is true. The dude works constantly, so it means that I'm away from home a lot. But it's a good gig. It's a scorched earth mentality on stage. We're not going through the motions. We're really playing, so it's fun.
I interviewed Mike Stern one time, just not too far from here at the music hall, and he said, we play for free. We pay to be on the road and travel.
That's the whole thing, man. It's like the 2 hours and 15 minutes is free. You pay me for the other 22 hours, so it really is.
But
that.
who's coming out to the shows? Is it young people? Is it parents? Is it the older generation? Is it just guitar buffs or all of the above?
I thought initially when I first started playing with Joe, and the way it all came about is I was doing records with him, and then he decided he wanted to make some changes, I guess, and he asked me, and he asked Anton Fig to be in the band, and so when I first got out on the road with Joe, it's just like it to me the audience was skewing a little bit middle age, and over the last 4 years or so, it's gotten younger. And more women and younger women, and which attracts younger men, and but obviously a lot of guitar nerds come out, to see him and his gear and all that kind of stuff. But his presence on PBS is really, I think, the key to his ascendancy, if you will.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tell me about your gear.
My gear. Out here, my dear, 2 Ashdown CTM 300s, 2 8x10 cabinets, Ashdown cabinets.
I was at the sound check. I could hear you loud and clear.
It's loud enough to easily get feedback on a P bass, which I play a few of those, and strung differently.
You mean different tunings?
Well, they're strung differently. The P bass is some flats. So I got a P bass with rounds on it, and actually one of the P basses is one I just put together. It's sort of a mutt. In fact, that's the nickname, is mutt. It's a 61 neck. And an MJT body that's been relicked, but it's really, really light wood, specifically requested the lightest body you can make. And hand wound pickups, and it's great, and it's got flats on it. And then I've got a couple of Mike Lull basses that are dropped to open D, not open D, but it's dropped a step for a couple of, because I do that in the studio sometimes, just so I don't have to play a 5-string, and sometimes the fingerings are easier, and 4-string. Anyway,
are they all tuned down a step, or just the E string?
No. The whole bass is tuned down a step.
Okay, well that does make it easier.
Well, it's a studio. Well, yeah, it would be, but I mean, it's something that I do in the studio. I drop tune or tune differently. So anyway, that is to accommodate some songs like that, and then I've got
opposed to a hip shot, maybe.
No, the hip shot is too confusing. And then I've got a jazz bass that I put Thunderbird pickups in. And it's mighty. You'll dig that, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I dig it already.
All right. So, and that's it, Okay. Minimal pedals. I've got a wah pedal that I use on one song and a chorus for one song. That's
and strings are D'Addario, you said, right?
Oh, yeah, they're great.
What did you mention? The NYXL?
NYXL for the round wound stuff, and chromes for the flats. Yeah.
Okay. Want to ask you a little bit about your bass technique. I notice sometimes you like to thump with your thumbs. Sometimes it looks like you're playing with a pick. Sometimes conventional fingers. Mm-hmm. What can you share with us and with them about your bass technique?
Oh man, it's just Neanderthal. I don't know. It's all about just accommodating a sound that I hear in my head. And I've never been very good with a pick. I've always played with my fingers. So what would appear to be a pick is actually I'm using my fingernail.
I wasn't 100% sure. I was wondering.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Plus, I'm not going to drop that. I'm going to.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
You hope it doesn't fall off.
Yeah. And I think Bernard Edwards used to do that too. Come to find out, the guy was Chic.
I know who Bernard Edwards was.
As it turns out, I think he used to do that too. He had a different name for it, but yeah, it's just it really is just to accommodate whatever sound I think would be appropriate.
Okay. Yeah. We've been known at ForBassPlayersOnly.com for our interviews. We've got over 600 now one-on-one bass player interviews like this. Well, not like this, but But we've been getting more and more well known for our online bass instruction. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you can impart any wisdom to our students here, or anybody who wants to learn to play the bass. What do you think are the one or two most important things that somebody should know or should think about as far as learning to play the bass the right way?
Well, first of all, I would say just realize the importance and the hierarchy of what the bass is supposed to do. It's a supportive instrument.
Like a lower archy.
It's not a high. It's right. That's very good.
I just thought of that on the spot.
And if you want to get hired, then it's the hierarchy.
Okay. But not the firedarchy. We don't want that one.
You never want that, because you get that when you forget the stuff that we're about to talk about, which is it's a supportive role. And that for me, it's all about the song. That's the reason I was always so drawn to the architecture of good pop songs and rock songs and stuff like that. Is like the way the instruments interact with one another, the way the role that the bass takes. And it doesn't mean it's always got to be in the background, but it's got to be appropriate, And so that really is, for me, it's melody driven. I listen to the lyrics. I know it's right. But the and the rhythmic and the melodic content of the what a typical listener is going to hear. Mm-hmm. The typical listeners don't really hear a lot of the other stuff, but they do hear the melody initially, and how to support that, the most efficient way.
Yeah. And sometimes you can get up there. What just came to my mind was the song "Dance with Me" by Orleans. Dance with Me. That guy is
hopping.
Yeah, he's way up there, but it works. It fits.
But it supports it. But it supports if you listen to the melody. It's underneath that.
Yeah.
And so, and I do that a lot, and I'll reharmonize throughout the song to bring a different flavor. And so it keeps it from being static. So like maybe in the last chorus of the song, if it's like if it's an E, sometimes I'll pedal a B underneath it, just for example, just to change and it catches the ear,
See, if you had a 5-string, you can go down to the low B.
Well, you can do that,
but you don't want to play fast.
I've spent a lot of time on a 5-string, I just like 4 strings better.
Yeah. What about the future? What else is coming up for you? I know you're in the middle of this tour. You've done so much already. Is there anything that you'd like to do that you haven't yet accomplished?
Yeah, I'd like to play with Steve Gadd.
Okay.
No, we were just talking about that last night, like bucket list. We were just after the gig, we'll be talking about different stuff, and it's like, and we get around to sometimes it's like, man, I still to this day have not played with Steve Gadd, and then you're just like, oh man, or James Gadsden, but as far as on a personal level, I'm going to be doing this, and for the foreseeable future, I think, for at least for another year. We're going to do Joe's next record at Abbey Road in January, and I got some other stuff. When we got off the tour, I've got some sessions that I'm doing in Nashville with different people, and I don't know, just it's kind of the same, waiting for the phone to ring.
Yeah. All right. I don't think you need to worry about that, but you never know.
We don't, do we?
Yeah. No, it's funny. I've interviewed Lee Sklar like 3-4 times, and it's he's I don't know quite how to put this. It's not like he's paranoid, but he doesn't take for granted that the phone is going to ring, and he always seems to be very appreciative every time it does. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, which
absolutely, man, absolutely. Well, especially. Because I'm not really a songwriter, and I'm not really an artist like that, so I really depend on, bass for me is a codependent instrument. I need other people. And that's why I don't even like to do file work that much, is because I don't like to be by myself, like that.
There are people that do it, though.
Oh, a lot of people do it.
I was just talking on the way down here. We're talking about Adam Ben Ezra. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's an Israeli bass player. He does a one-man show. Well, of course, he does have some loopers and things like that.
Yeah, and a lot of cats are really good at that. And but I'm just saying, just as far as making recordings and playing bass on people's records, I'll do file work. But I'll usually want to go to someone else's studio just to have somebody to bounce to. Even the engineer's like, hey, is this okay? Because sometimes it's hard to tell.
Right. Rather than do 2 or 3 versions, or what do you think? Send it back.
Yeah, all of that. Because I've done that before too, and it's like, oh Lord, if I had just had somebody around and just say that sucks, hey, do it again.
Well, let me ask you one more question, because I know you've got a show to play tonight. What would you be if you weren't a bass player? Something outside of music.
Oh man. A sushi chef.
Okay. You mean a sous chef or a?
No, sushi. I think that would be a fascinating thing. I mean, it's like those cats are so good. I mean, they're really good ones. I'd like to study under someone who really is good at that. Other than that, I was going to be a graphic artist when I was a kid, before I was a musician. So I used to, so I don't know, whether that would be architectural or whatever, but that I was on that path, for a while, but that was a kid thing, but I used to draw all the time.
I did a tour of Japan and Korea in 1992. I gave sushi a fair shot. It's not for me.
It's not for everyone. Just like Vegemite is not for everyone,
And wash it down with some sake, and it's I'm getting. I think I'm.
No, it's just. I just think it's. That's just an example of a skill that some people have. That's just fascinating to me. You know, the people who really do it well.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I can appreciate that.
yeah.
It looks nice. It looks artistic.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting a little off track here, but
Well, I'm thinking about food.
yeah. Okay. Well, it is about that time.
It is.
All right. Well, let's leave it there. On location at Joe Bonamassa's tour bus. We're in the back of the bus.
This is the band bus. This is not Joe's bus, just to be specific.
Well, I didn't mean he travels in it, but it's still his. Well, wherever we're on
the bus, baby.
I think
it's
they
a
know.
magic bus.
I think they know what we mean. With legendary bass player Michael Rhodes. He's one of the top 100 bass players of all time. And
So
I'm
they
so
say.
proud to be sitting next to him and touching him and being with him. I'm John Liebman. You're watching the #1 site for exclusive one-on-one bass player interviews, and now more and more people's favorite site for learning bass online, for bassplayers.only.com. I'm John Liebman. Thanks for checking it out.